Hi, my name is David Knight, and welcome to those amazing Psalms. Psalm 61, From the Ends of the Earth. There's a scene in Fiddler on the Roof where Tevye is seeing his daughter Hodel off at the train. She is heading to Siberia to join her fiancé Perchik, who has been sentenced there. To Tevye, Siberia is the end of the earth, a frozen wasteland, and he can't understand why his daughter would leave her home and family to go so far away. But his daughter's heart is already there. The concept of the ends of the earth is a relative one. But if you didn't seek it out, the end of the earth is a lonely and terrifying place. This is where the singer of Psalm 61 finds himself. Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you as my heart grows faint. The singer is far away from home, emotionally and physically exhausted. He calls out to God, "Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you are my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy." The experience of being cut off from home, isolated and feeling vulnerable like a refugee, is as old as humanity. Think of Adam and Eve driven out of the Garden of Eden. Think of Cain being cut off from his relatives, Joseph sold into slavery, Israel exiled to Babylon. No wonder this psalm has timeless relevance. It clearly speaks to our reality today. Being quarantined or locked down and socially distanced goes against everything in us that longs to connect. This psalm may have come from the time when King David's son Absalom usurped the throne and David had to flee for his life. A father's pain combined with clear and present dangers intensified David's prayer. In verse 4 he says to God, "I long to dwell in your tent forever. Find refuge under the shelter of your wings." The contrast between "in your tent" and "the ends of the earth" couldn't be greater. The gap between the longing of his heart and the pain of his reality is what fuels this prayer and what invites us to pray it ourselves. At the end of verse 4, we hear the word Selah, a pause. Perhaps a musical bridge, or a pause to reflect. It could be a transition from before to after. That was my predicament and my prayer, and now I'm praising God for answering my prayer. Or the pause could be more like, come to think of it, God has already answered my prayer. God is my refuge and strength. I think it dawns on David that God is already his strong tower, even if he had to run for his life. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. The heritage of those who fear you is everything that God has promised to those who anchor their lives in him. God is lavish in his grace, and when we respond to him, he shares himself even more deeply with us. Psalm 25 says, "The Lord confides in those who fear him. He makes known his covenant to them." Another psalm says, "The Lord delights in those who fear him. He watches over them. He is a sanctuary for them." As a nation, Israel enjoyed a special covenant relationship with God. God and the land were their inheritance. Now, through Jesus, God's salvation flows out to the ends of the earth. The shelter of his wings extends to us wherever we are. The Selah, pause, in the psalm interrupts David's prayer to reveal how God has already answered. It also leads to another transition. The psalm that began as a personal prayer now expands to be a public prayer for the king. Prolong the life of the king. May his years endure to all generations. May he be enthroned forever before God. Appoint steadfast love and faithfulness to watch over him. If David is the psalmist, as seems quite possible, he is praying that his reign will be secure, and that his dynasty will be extended as God had promised, and that David's descendants would stand before God, literally before God's face. May they see eye to eye with you, God. May your love and faithfulness be hallmarks of their reigns forever. David had no way of knowing how amazingly God would fulfill this prayer through the work of his son Jesus, who went to the ends of the earth, spiritually speaking, to find us and bring us home, and become for all humanity King of Kings and Lord of all lords. And today, the personal prayer of David has become the public prayer of countless followers of Jesus, echoing the final verse of the psalm, singing praises to God's name, and living out vows of gratitude and devotion. No matter how cut off we may feel, no matter how far from home, no matter how far off our hopes and goals seem to be, we are safe in God's tent, under the shelter of his wings. In fact, pilgrims and refugees will always feel somewhat out of place in this world, but that is where this psalm helps us to pray our reality to God. Lord, hear my cry. Listen to my prayer. Lead me to safety. Bring me home, and help me to live my vows and sing your praise every day. And it teaches us to go beyond our private anxieties to pray for the larger world, for kings, presidents, prime ministers, and public officials of every kind, to pray for the advance of God's kingdom, even to the ends of the earth. And he promises to be with us even to the end of time. Take care.